Welcome to Off Panel, Sketch.com's weekly podcast. This week's guest is our first solo return visitor and the artist of injection at Image. It's Declan Shalvey. Thanks for joining the show, Declan.
Oh, thanks for scraping the bottom of the barrel. You've had the rest now.
God, now I have to go back to the same old. So depressing. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, you got Injection Art Volume 2 is kicking off January 13th. And it's the perfect time to talk about the book because, you know, we're recording this show on January 2nd. And I know this is the thing that I'm most curious about, Declan, is I know you've always wanted to launch a book and have a book where you're the only artist. Now that you've got what you wished, how are you feeling about the experience?
I'm fucking sick of it. Like, no, yeah, it's great. I was kind of looking back at some of the Moon Knight stuff. I'm like, man, this is you know, I'm really proud of this. Is this my best stuff? Because I was worried that it would be my best stuff. And having, you know, and working on that book, we had a lot of artistic control on it because I think Marvel were just happy for Warren to be pleased. Mm-hmm. And Warren really, you know, like if there was anything I was looking for, Warren had my back, which was great. So getting more control over what I want, you know, like, and getting to design every single inch of the book and the trade as well, like. I mean, Fonografiks designed it, but I basically gave him like a rough idea of what I was looking for, and then he just did it and made it look like nice. And just I just never. It's kind of easy to forget how satisfying that is, you know. Because you know, once you're doing stuff for the companies, there's no say. I mean, I'm still frustrated with that. Like the Moon Knight trade has my name and Warren's name, but Jordie's name isn't on it. Yeah. Even though all of her name is on all of the single issues.
I actually didn't know that. That's really bizarre.
Yeah, it's really annoying as well because like there's like the Marvel logo in the middle and Ellis's name is on one side and my name's on the other side. Because my name's longer, it doesn't look as well from a design point of view. Mm-hmm. You know, it looks unbalanced. But if Jordie's name was there, actually, it would be balanced. It's a stupid design quibble, but yeah, but sure, I found that out when I got the book. You know, little things like that.
Well, I mean, not to interrupt or anything, but it is interesting that happened, given the fact it's not like it's just like colorist A or something like that. Not that any like colors should be ignored or anything, but I mean, Jordie is a selling point on her own, and it's odd that they would not have that.
I don't know, but like I think it seems to be. If you look at any Marvel trade. Mm-hmm. The last like 2 years, they're all like that. It'll have the inker, it'll have the colorist. Sorry, it'll have the penciler and writer, or two writers and one penciler, or one writer and two pencilers. But it never has the colorist down there. It has them on the single issues, but it doesn't have them on the trade. So like Ian Herring is none of his Marvel ones or any of those. I don't know who made the decision. Right. It seems a bit silly to have it on the issues and not on the trade, but. So I don't take it as a personal slight against Jordie, mm-hmm. But I do think it's bollocks. Like, but again, I didn't notice because I think the Moon Knight trade was one of the first Marvel Now trades. So I think that's I only found out when it went to print. Mm-hmm. But anyway, to answer your question, it's extremely satisfying. I kind of forget how much control I have. Like I'm doing the variant covers for this new volume, and you know I just decided to do something completely different because we did this kind of haunted thing for the first one. I'm like, well, you know, they don't sell like crazy, but I've been to enough signings now where people have specifically bought those ones. Right. So I'm like, for the people who do like the other version, it doesn't cost me. You know, I don't charge to do an extra cover. I'll just take the day to do the cover. For people who like getting it, so I use it as an illustration challenge, basically, or just to kind of do something a little bit different. So I was able to. I'm doing this thing where I'm taking an image and I'm scrambling it. So because this kind of arc concentrates on Vivek, mm-hmm. who is a detective. So kind of in my mind, I like the idea of going in the comic stands and seeing an image that you have to piece together. Mm-hmm. You know, yeah, it's probably stupid, but
No,
I got
I mean, I've seen the first one you did, and it's fantastic. I think it's
thanks.
well, and it's a nice variation because like I really like the are they haunted variants or ghost variants? I always mix them up.
They are haunted.
Haunted, yeah. And I actually got all of those. Those were like the ones I got
Cool.
in my shop, and I just think they're really great. But I like the idea of mixing it up, dependent on like the plot of the next arc.
Well, because each volume concentrates a different character, I think it's a good reason to change. Also, as much as I do like the haunted covers, I think by issue 7 or 8, it's just too much. It's just too much of the one thing, you know. If all those covers were that same kind of like ghostly kind of look, I think you wouldn't be able to tell them apart anymore. You know,
Right.
it's fine to do it for 5, but once you get past that, I think your eye is just going to glaze over, and every time you go to the comic shop, you're not going to see the image because you already know what to expect. You know.
Yeah, no. Well, I was actually talking with Michael Marisi about that last week on my podcast, and we were talking about how like one of the big things for all comics, but mostly creator owned, is you have to find a way to stand apart. And if you're still doing the same thing over and over, and it's kind of like one cover that I really like, one comics covers that I really like is Paper Girls. And it's just because it's so bold and colorful, and everyone has a different color to it that it's hard to not look at that book.
Absolutely, but you got to wonder. I mean, no, I completely agree. I think that's a great approach. What's it going to look like by issue 7 or 8? Because they're using primary colors, and you know you can only vary that so much. Like the Moon Knight covers we did, I was really really happy with, but I stayed on the covers after I left. But I have to admit, by the time we finished that run, you know, I think it's the same with maybe sometimes with like East of West, maybe, or a book that has a very the cover design is extremely bold and like kind of like different. I think it might work better for a shorter series, because once you get into like the teens and the 20s, that the reader just kind of like they've seen half that image already. They've seen half that, you know, the logo takes up half the space, for example, the Moon Knight ones. They've already seen it, so I think their eye glazes over half of it, which is what you don't want, you know?
Right. No, absolutely. And, you know, I think it's interesting. Like, I find covers to be really interesting, and not to take this in a completely different direction, but I mean, you do an unbelievable amount of covers. You did 50 last year. You couldn't have made it 52.
51.
Oh, 51.
I just remembered another one the other day. I was like, oh, I forgot about that one.
Why couldn't you have done 52?
If I'd been counting them, I would have, you know. But like, you know, none of them were for DC, so it didn't really mattered. It's crazy. Actually, I was a little frustrated that my sequential pages were so low. But I mean, I've been deliberately slower trying to make pages the best they can be, and I think it's easier to just take like a couple of covers here and there, and then you forget that they build up. Plus, you know, I've done 2 covers for every issue of Injection, so
right.
You know, that's already 10 there. I'd probably like do 2 Marvel covers a month. So there's another 24, like, and then there's all the Image ones and the other. I'm going to be a lot more selective in 2016, just because I've seen how slow it's made. It's definitely, I think they're a little too distracting. And I just did too many covers last year. So I think I'll just do maybe like a couple of Marvel ones and the Injection ones, and just leave it at that. Just because I need to be a bit more productive on the book, I think.
Right. Well, okay, so you had said that you were trying to be deliberately a little bit slower on Injection than you had been in, like, you know, Moon Knight and other books you've worked on in the past. And I, you know, personally, I can't speak for you, but personally, I think this is your best work ever, especially reading through it again. I mean, like, especially like the Simeon fight scene is so good, but I really, really love like how expressive, like the mannerisms. Like there's this one page where Simeon is on the phone with Vivek, and like Simeon's asking if they're tracking everybody, and Vivek makes his face when he says, "Of course not." And
yeah,
it's just it's a great moment. But I mean, like, your art completely sells it, and I think that I mean, not that you couldn't have achieved that level of like expressiveness on Moon Knight, but I mean, your main character's face was covered with a mask most of the time. So having these characters, I mean, it really gets you to, like, it allows you to showcase that part of your art quite a bit. And I think it's really, like, it's been fantastic. But do you feel like with that freedom and with the ability to take things a little bit slower and not be like, you know, hitting the deadline all the time, that your art, in your opinion, has taken another step forward?
I just don't know. I've been thinking about it. Like I talk to Jordie sometimes, where I get a little insecure, and not just slowing down the rate of the work. I mean, because to be fair, I had some lead time on Moon Knight, so that process began on Moon Knight.
Mm-hmm.
So I just carried it over to Injection, and I think what I was slightly insecure about was because it's the storytelling is quite deliberately slower. Mm-hmm. It's not as beat. And I mean, Moon Knight was every single issue was a self-contained thing, whereas Injection, it's more. I think when you read it as a trade, it kind of flows a little bit more than reading it month to month. Although I still think it reads fine month to month, but I was a little worried that I made a choice to be more boring in how the story's told, if you know what I mean. Because if Vivek is talking in a room, there's no point doing this crazy angle, and it's restraint. I'm trying to to show deliberate restraint. So when something like the scene where Simeon is fighting in the hotel room, that scene really should jump off the page,
right?
Because it's completely different to everything else that's happening, and it's knowing when to choose your battles,
right?
In Deadwood, when you have Swearingen, and there's this big build up between him and the sheriff for like episodes and episodes and episodes, and when it finally happens, it's all the better. If that stuff was happening every single episode, it would just lose any kind of impact, So that can be a little bit worrying when you're doing it, month to month to month to month, of really trying to pare it back and slow it down and just like try and just tell a story. Mm-hmm. Because I think what I want to do soon is just go nuts. I'm ready to go nuts on something. I'm ready to I think Warren's promised Simeon is going to kill people soon. So, I'm looking
super excited about that.
I really am, yeah. Don't get me wrong, not that I am bored in what I'm drawing, because everything is like I just drew a scene in New York, and I just took the time to make that really detailed and stuff. It's not that doing the more restrained scenes is boring, but I'm trying to. I will naturally become insecure because I'm doing so much of one thing. I don't want to get too stale with it,
Sure.
So I actually switched it up a little bit. You haven't seen issue 6 yet, but most of Injection Volume 1 is like long panels, like letterbox panels.
Yeah.
Well, I switched up this arc, and I'm doing more grids, because the way I see it, like Vivek is much more methodical, and it's lots of kind of panels where he's observing little details and stuff. So I wanted to make the storytelling slightly different, because it's through, not necessarily through Vivek's point of view, but we're kind of shifting the main character to Vivek. Mm-hmm. And so what I will hope to do in Volume 3 is maybe shift the storytelling in a different way,
Right.
Not that there's no letterbox panels. I mean, they're still very much part of the identity, but I'm trying to do something slightly more subtle. Instead of me just trying to like break panel borders for no reason, just to entertain myself, just try and change the structure of the storytelling so that it feels fresher to me.
Well, and it makes sense. I mean, it's kind of like the covers. Like you don't want to be one thing for too long, but even beyond that, it gives each character their own signature.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. But that's another thing, though, is like I had no idea that. So I'm guessing that each volume is going to have its own not POV character, but like character where they take the lead effectively.
Yeah, more we'll say 80% of the focus. Like so the first one is more focused on Maria. I mean, you only see Vivek in I think like 3 pages. Simeon has like half of an issue.
Right.
Whereas this one now is actually the first issue is all Vivek.
Oh wow!
All of it. I remember I wrote Warren. I'm like, this is weird because normally we have another scene with some of the other characters, and he said like originally that was the plan, but I just liked writing him so much. I think when you read issue 6, it definitely feels like a kind of a Warren Ellis-y.
Yeah,
you can tell Vivek is the most Warren Ellis-y character in the book.
Yeah, I was gonna say I actually when I was reading it, I wrote down I was like Vivek equals like Warren Ellis character, just because reading his stuff, it feels the most like not that he's defined by this, but it feels most like planetary.
look, that is, I wanted to do a planetary. That's kind of what I was hoping for. I didn't say it to Warren because I think the worst thing to do is if they say, "What do you want to do?" You know, it'd be like if you said to Brian K. Vaughan, "Is like, what do you want to do?" Is like, "I want to do Y the Last Man." No, see, nobody wants to redo what they've done, you know.
Yeah.
But that was definitely what I had in mind, something along that line, and it does kind of. There's a sense of it's a similar type of thing, and I'm really, yeah, I'm definitely really happy about that. But even sometimes I find it annoying when I'm reading a comic and the voice of the writer is so in your face. Like I feel I got really turned off by Mark Millar for a while because I felt that every single character had a really snottily sarcastic thing to say in every issue. I was like, I could just see the Mark Millar more than I could see the story, and I get frustrated with that. And maybe there's the odd thing of Warren's would feel like that. So there's definitely a feeling of like how Warren's done before, but I don't think it's gone too far in the lines of like, well, this is just Warren Ellis,
Yeah, and that's the thing about, like, not to make this the Warren Ellis fan club episode for a second, but I think the interesting about Warren's stuff is that when he's writing, I don't really ever notice, like, there's a slight like voice thing, but I don't really think it's that evident. I think it's more of like a style thing, and like he has this attitude to his writing that I think Injection has, but it definitely feels like all the characters feel very original. And it is interesting because I was like, going into this, I totally was expecting Maria to be the main character-ish in the second arc too, and I think that it's gonna be really interesting to see how that plays out, both for the writing and for your art, because obviously, like you said, you're already working in like little grids to work in for Vivek because it makes a little bit more sense. But it's just interesting having that big of a shift in, not saying it's going to be that big of a shift, but a shift of lead effectively from arc to arc. It'll be really an interesting read.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a way it feels like the book's kind of revamped a little. I mean, in a way, I actually even think that I think issue 6 could be the beginning of the story, just because there's nothing. It reads linear in a linear fashion because some characters have met up in a certain way, but especially with issue 6 because there's no other characters in it. It's effectively detective story, which kind of goes more about. I think I was asking Twitter one day, like, what genre would you?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Because I was just genuinely, I can't remember why I was asking. I think somebody was asking me, and I was just kind of thinking on it a bit. But if Volume 1 is a sci-fi, which is what originally I was thinking it was, Volume 2 is definitely a detective story. So in a way, it feels like the genre has shifted.
Yeah,
which is great because when Warren asked what I wanted to do, I gave a list of genres. So I feel that he's giving me all the things that I've asked for.
Yeah, you're going like on a tour of genres, but it actually makes sense though, because it's like the whole idea of the injection is it's supposed to be stimulating innovation, and it's supposed to be using the past to make the future more interesting. And I think that like switching genres actually makes a lot of sense just for the subject matter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who knows what the next one's going to be like?
Oh God, yeah. I'm trying to imagine what Robin Morell's one's going to be like.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine Simeon's is just going to be way more bombastic. And I mean, I already have it in my mind. If that's the case, I'll probably do something like more like floating panels, like probably what I did more with Thunderbolts. When I drew that, there was a lot more kind of like I'd shift like size of panels and make some more vertical than horizontal. And this isn't the arc to do it on,
right?
But I think definitely if Simeon's is more in that way, definitely. I was trying to think what I would do with the other two characters is interesting too, because with Moral I'm not entirely sure. And I was even thinking about the covers. I may not do this, so I don't mind saying it, but drawing foliage for like a section of like the variant covers, and then maybe not to be a hack or anything, but maybe drawing more foliage on that cover and scanning that and having that be the second one, and over the course of the 5 covers have it just become more and more encrusted with different kinds of plants and foliage. Like actually make the 5 covers different stages of the one image.
No, that would be really.
These are all just stupid things that pop into my head. Like,
well, I mean, you're actively thinking about the characters and everything, and that makes sense, especially given the fact that now that I know that it's gonna be switching by arc, like that could change how you do the covers. That could change how you like lay out some of the pages. I mean, think about Bridget. I mean, like she is like dark. She is dark, and like I feel like that you could do a lot of really interesting things with her, and
even black out the panel borders now that I think about it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, she would be a really interesting one because that is one thing I really like about the characters and like the way that you draw them and the way that Warren writes them and everything is they each have their own very unique styles and like they have very defined identities right from the start. And I think that's totally rad. And there's a lot.
I think it's probably a little difficult. I mean, I can appreciate it might be difficult when you're reading it because you're basically getting a little slice of each character issue to issue,
right.
Which I mean, I can imagine was maybe frustrating issue to issue because you're only getting a bit of each one. But I feel that it's just slowly building and building and building, and I really like the idea of doing that. Like, especially like because I have to think now and then is like, what would I be doing if I wasn't doing this book? And I'd probably just be on another arc of another book, which would be fun, but I wouldn't feel like I'm making something new,
Yeah.
And after a career of like putting a new spin on an old character, which is always great, and I'd always be up for doing that. It does feel nice to just take something and like that doesn't exist, draw the foundation, and just start building that house.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's not to like take a negative spin or anything, but I know that one thing that people had said about the first arc was that like it wasn't like building to the plot super fast.
Yeah.
And I think like we were talking about before we started recording, we were talking about how like TV shows, like how they can spend their entire time building up this overall story, and then like because you don't want to, like for example Jessica Jones, like you didn't want to kill Kilgrave right off the start. You had to build to the point where it became necessary. Spoiler alert, I apologize, I'm the worst. Anyways, but with like injection, like you don't want to reveal what the injection is. It is right off from the start, because then you kind of like, I don't know, revealing the picture.
When anybody talked to me about injection, I would always ask them, have you read issue 5 yet? And I and some of them hadn't. I'm like, okay, well, you need to read issue 5, and I won't say what happens in issue, or I don't know if I should or not. Who cares? But the point is, you could have done that in the first issue, but it would have not have had any impact, unless you actually built it to the point where we have that reveal in issue 5. That's the best place to do it, and I guess in the way of like serialized episodic fiction, like Jessica Jones or whatnot, that is written from beginning to end, and it is filmed,
right?
And you're not, and because especially with the Netflix platform, it's released as one thing,
right? Exactly.
So you're not watching reaction to episode 3, people hating a character, and then you deciding you need to kill them off in episode 10,
right? Exactly.
That's if you're just making the work, and then you put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm looking at the reaction to injection as it comes out. But at the same time, it's Warren writing it, so I don't need to worry. I'm not getting insecure about what people think of the story, because Warren's been around a while. I think he knows how to write the story, so that's fine. I will say it would be harder for a new writer to ignore that type of stuff, but as regards injection, I like that there's this. I remember Warren had the structure of it before he had the story of it, which I thought was interesting.
Right.
Because I told him what I wanted to do, and he said, "How about 100-page graphic novels? 5 graphic novels in 100 pages." I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. That you had the structure of the format before you actually had the story." I thought that was one of the first, early times I was talking to Warren. So I'm like, so that's what geniuses do. And I don't mind saying that because he's not going to listen to this. It's like from like a careerist point of view. We could have just done Moon Knight 2.
Right.
We could have done 10 issues or 6 issues and just basically cash in on that. I like that Warren didn't make a first issue that was just I like that it is deliberately. It seems to me to be deliberately difficult. Not so difficult that you can't read it, but difficult enough so that you're not just given all the answers on a play. I remember somebody goes like, I don't know what's happening." I'm like, "It's a mystery.
Right.
You're not supposed to know what happens. You're supposed, it's supposed to. If I told you everything in the first page, then what's the point?" It's like, I'm sorry that this isn't giving you everything that you want, but in fairness, you just read the first one,
Right.
So I mean, I don't know if I'd be ballsy enough to do that. And I just really, really like that. Like, Warren is, again, I think we could have had a much more popular, higher selling book if we did that. But I like that. I feel like I'm working on something literary, if you know what I mean.
No, I mean, it makes perfect sense because, well, just from a straight storytelling standpoint, if you revealed everything about what the injection is right in the first issue, it wouldn't have had any weight either, because you had to build to it to actually have meaning to it.
And we still don't know everything about it, but we know what it is.
Right, exactly. Well,
there's a certain device, and I quite like how the reveal of the injection plays with a narrative device. I hadn't seen that before. As again, another thing what I like working about Warren is like, I have not seen that before.
Right.
I love that I'm reading something like, this is something that I have not seen before, and I get to draw it.
Yeah, I mean,
feels like you're adding something to the medium,
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing, and I talked about this before we got on the call, but I guess before we started recording, but I think one of the interesting things is I reread it in trade, and I highly recommend to anyone who was buying the single issues, reread it or get the trade and reread it. $9.99, great deal. And the interesting thing is like how if you reread it, then you realize that the injection was narrating during the previous 4 issues, and you just didn't really know it.
Like, yeah, I mean, especially with, I think if you read the first issue and there's that weird yellow font narration, it's not in a caption box. It's weird. It seems out of. It seems like it shouldn't be there in the first issue. But then by the time you get to issue 5, you realize why,
Did you know that was the injection?
Yeah, I knew that much. I don't really know anything else, but I did know that in the first. He told me that in the first issue, which got me so excited to get to issue 5. Yeah. That much I did know. Like, so I was able to tell people, it's like, just keep reading. There's going to be something cool coming up. So I mean, all I really know about the next arc is as far as I've drawn, or what Warren's said to do in the covers, which is, well, I mean, which isn't a spoiler as such, is that Simeon and Bridget are going to be called to the States. So I'm not going to get to draw all that Irish stuff anymore, but that's okay.
Oh, well, okay, I have to bring this up because I'm obsessed with the sandwiches, but sandwiches come up a lot in the first arc. Is that a thing? Yeah. is that a thing?
I don't... The first issue, there was all the line about the sandwiches.
Right.
I thought it was hilarious. I told him I liked it, and then I pitched a sandwich variant. As a joke. Wasn't a joke as such. I legitimately thought of doing a sandwich variant, and he was like, "Yeah, go for it." So I did, and it was the haunted cover for issue 2. So it's just kind of kept going since then. So I don't know if I egged him on or not. I'm trying to think, is there a sandwich in issue?
Vivek eats a sandwich in issue 2.
I'm trying to remember, is there one? There's none. I don't think there's any in issue... no.
There's in 3.
Actually, you know what? I'm totally wrong. I was just about to say there's no sandwiches in issue 6. I would say one of the most important things in issue 6 is a sandwich.
I think there's a sandwich in all 6 issues.
In the first 5, definitely. There's none in issue... Well, I don't know if you read the solicitation, but the solicitation for issue 6 says that Vivek is on the case of a murderous sandwich.
Oh my God, I did not read that. Sandwiches are apparently evil in the world of injection.
Yeah, it's getting that way. But you've definitely read issue 6. I can't believe I nearly forgot that. But sandwich is a major plot point in issue 6.
That is amazing. Okay, I'm so totally into that. I don't read solicitations.
Now that I remember when I read the script, there was a bit with a sandwich where I legitimately out loud went, "Fuck." So.
And actually, I just flipped through it. There's no sandwich in issue 5. The streak is broken.
Okay, damn.
Although, I have to admit, I actually did not realize that was a sandwich in the haunted variant number 2. That is
That's
hilarious.
okay. I mean, well, the way we decided, I think I had drawn it before we decided what the colors were going to be.
Hmm.
But it's not. It doesn't really matter.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, how like you've been digging into it. You've been working on the creator owned stuff. You've been taking it all the different ways you want to and taking your time as much as you can. But how's the workload? How are you balancing it?
The workload is. I mean, it was good going. I found it very, very difficult at first because I underestimated how long it would take to really build something up from the ground up.
Hmm.
So I kind of started later than I wanted to, and then once I got going, it was fine. Issue 5 got really tight because, again, the pages take a certain amount of time. And then you're hoping, well, maybe the next issue won't be as hard to draw, but then Warren gives me something challenging instead of I want every single challenge I get to be tackled rather than avoided.
Hmm.
I think I blew a bit of my lead time in between the two volumes because I think New York Comic Con happened and we were away for October and then coming back. I lost a bit of the lead time I had
Hmm.
on this volume, so I'm kind of under the gun at the moment. But all that really kind of makes me do is kind of try and make more creative decisions on how to make things kind of work. The workload is quite high, not just because of all the actual physical work, but the things like keeping track of the final cutoff date,
Right.
keeping track of the release dates, organizing things like signings. I've already had to pull out of a signing because I'm too busy.
Right.
Things like scheduling yourself and making sure all this stuff is down, making sure I'm getting script out of Warren on time, all this stuff. Admittedly, if we had an editor, would be handy.
Hmm.
But because the way we worked on Moon Knight, it was actually pretty seamless going through to injection because we were pretty fine. But I would admit stuff like that kind of gets in the way, and I found doing a creator-owned book really taxing. Not just because of the work, but because of all of that other stuff, and trying to promote your own book.
Right.
Because it doesn't have that Marvel brand. I could approach radio stations or whatnot and say, I'm doing Marvel. That Marvel brand really, really helped. But this is something that effectively nobody has any reason to give a shit.
Hmm.
And trying to get it out there to as many people. Selling a book is a completely separate job to making a book, and doing both has been difficult, I'd say.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was going to ask about is I know that it kind of seems like you've had to take the lead over Warren on getting injection out there, and I know at least in part because he's been ill lately. But do you find that part of the equation adds quite a bit of work for you?
Yeah, I do. Now, I mean, I knew starting out, like, Warren doesn't go to shows.
Hmm.
Warren doesn't do a whole load of promotion. Because to a degree, Warren's brand is his brand as such. He has a following who will buy his work. I feel. I'm not from. I don't feel like I have that kind of name power at all.
Hmm.
So I realize I have to hustle. I don't expect people to just pick something up just because it's there. I feel like I have to work for it. So I deliberately stepped in to do that. Also, I kind of feel like a lot of artists don't really step in front of the work that they're doing. They'll
Hmm.
kind of take a step back, concentrate on working on the book, and have the writer do all that stuff. Because Warren's doing like James Bond, and he's writing things for film and whatnot. He's a busy guy, and this is my one thing, the
Right.
one thing that I work on. So I feel like I have to step in front of it. So I want to do it. It's not like I feel. It's not like I feel I have to. I want to, but at the same time, that is a deliberate choice. But it also does make things a little bit more difficult. But look, I couldn't step back, and I deliberately stepped back a bit this time. I think Warren's doing more interviews just to save me time because I need to hunker down and draw more.
Hmm. Well, and I do think that it is kind of interesting that you brought up like the fact that he's writing all these different things. Like you look at like I don't know, not that Brian K. Vaughan wouldn't promote all of his books, but he's got Paper Girls and he's got Barrier and he had a new release of Private Eye come out and Saga and yada yada. So if he talks about it, like something in an interview, he's going to be talking about all of those things.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you talk about like Cliff Chang, or you talk about like Fiona Staples or anybody like that, they're only going to be talking about the one book they work on. So it allows a greater focus if the artist talks about it. And also, like, it is important for you to get your name out there. That way, people know who you are, and people start associating the book with you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to be doing that. It's hard to know how much it really helps, how much it really works. But I mean, somebody on Twitter today told me that they found out about my work because I did the first podcast when you started the website. So there's one.
We did it.
I mean, yeah, we did it. Nailed it. But there's no way to know. But yeah, effectively, Warren could do 3 interviews that don't even touch injection.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he will, because it's his book it's a book that he owns. It's a book that he has a personal investment in. But I mean, I was very aware of that when I was working on Thunderbolts, because Jeff Parker was working on Thunderbolts and Hulk and a couple of other things. And when I was working with Cullen, he would do an interview about one of the other million books he's doing. That'll always be split attention wise, But all I really have is the one thing, so I wanted to do well, clearly.
Yeah, and not to make this an artist credit thing, but I do think, is there a part of you that kind of feels like, because you're such a big part of that conversation, that it's important for you to kind of, I don't know, put up, because, oh God, that was going to sound really mean, but you're like, you're getting out there because...
Put up or shut up?
Yeah, yes, that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's some, with all that art cred stuff, there's stuff that I can say, I can say whatever the hell I want, really, like, because I've been around long enough to have seen all this stuff. And also, this isn't really stuff that is affecting me. I'm in a very nice position. I'm working with the most amazing writers in the medium, and one of the most amazing colors in the medium, and a creator-owned book that I completely get everything I put into it, I get out of it. It's a great position to be in. So I'm fine. I'm not. All these times where I'm ever kind of like complaining about people not getting just credit or not. That's people who are probably not in as good a situation as me, and are probably too afraid to say something because they don't want to rock the boat. So especially if I'm going to say it, I should definitely be putting up with it. It'd be one thing for me to go like, oh, well, artists just stand next to their books, and then me just not,
Yeah, that would be. I don't know if it'd be hypocritical. Well, it might be a little bit, I guess. But
I think it would be a little hypocritical,
Yeah. So one thing that you mentioned a little bit ago was that you guys don't have an editor, and I have to ask, like, why is that?
It just didn't come up.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's not true. Actually, it did come up. I was thinking of asking somebody to do it, and then Jordie asked Eric if he would do it. Eric Stevenson.
Right.
And I thought, well, if the publisher of feckin' Image Comics is willing to do it, then grand,
Yeah.
But then didn't really come up because the pages were coming in, and I think every now and then, if something isn't up for a while, Eric might go like, where are we on this? But because we had a good work system from Moon Knight, it just kind of carried over, and I don't think Warren's looking to talk his ideas through with anybody.
Sure.
And Jordie knows how to schedule herself, and I know how to schedule myself, so we just kind of knew how to do it.
It was just kind of necessary.
Yeah, but I mean, if I was to do another creator-owned book, I think I definitely would hire an editor. Not because it's so tough doing this, but I think clearly a lot of this book is carrying off the name of Warren, and were I to do something off my own name more so, I think I would need a more well-oiled machine to make sure that stuff is taken care of.
Yeah.
We're in a fairly nice position with Injection. It's got Warren's name on it. It's more likely to do well, and if we. I think the most important thing to me is just that the book's on time, that the book comes out when it's supposed to.
Yeah, and that was one. I had Sebastian Gerner on my show a while ago, and one of the things that we talked about was, I just thought it was interesting that, like, for some books, basically, he would just be like the guy who would every once in a while, like, hey, this deadline's coming up. Not a specific deadline, but something for like FOC or something for that. Because I know I saw that conversation you were having on Twitter earlier about like when FOC is, and I know sometimes those things slip from people's minds. Not saying that from you guys, because you guys are a well-oiled machine, but
well, this most recent issue, I had a problem because something slipped. I mean, I have all these things marked down, but Jordie, there was a slight change with how Image are putting books together this year, where they're being a lot more cognizant, if that's the word.
Focused on timeliness.
Yeah, making sure stuff gets in, because things are they get in at a certain time. And I was like, oh crap, so it's not the FOC, and she's like, no. I was like, oh bollocks. So I realized I had much less time than I thought I had. But in general, I think I've always been. I mean, I've always very much a workhorse at Marvel Comics. I always got my stuff in on time. The benefit of doing your own book is that I give myself a little bit more time month to month on the last few issues, because a monthly book is a monthly book, but if you're doing a book that comes out every 4 weeks, technically it's coming out in less than a month.
Yeah.
So the way I kind of scheduled it is that the first 3 issues will come out in 4 weeks, but the last 2 will maybe come out in 5 weeks. Just because, especially after having done the first 5 issues, we really ran out of time on the last one. So I'm trying to, keeping that in mind, not fall into that trap this time.
Well, that's one of the things that I'm really curious about is this is a big change in your experience. It's significantly different than working with Marvel, where they have tons of editors on board who are
but at the same time, there was some times where I was at Marvel where I had to ask them for deadlines so many times. I mean, I'm not bad mouthing Marvel. It depends editor to editor, book to book, and how stressed they are. But because there's so many books going through that place, there'll be times where I'm asking for. I would try and plan my life around the deadlines given to me, and then you'd just be sitting on your hands waiting for a deadline. Sometimes I was given an issue and it's like, there's 2 weeks. That could get pretty tough. At least with doing your own book, you can kind of, having the experience of that, you can kind of plan ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was what I was going to ask about. Actually, was do you feel like the experience of working on your own book has taught you some things about your art and how to manage your schedule in ways that you didn't realize before?
No.
No.
No, only because I work with Jordie. I see how it kind of hits the end of the process.
Sure.
And I was always very adamant about not running into colorists. Deadlines, so I think knowing Jordie has made me more aware of it. I think I was probably a bit more ignorant before we worked together, because I would hand stuff in when asked for, but I'm a lot more aware of why it needs to be in. Seeing other people totally miss their deadlines and affects her productivity, and then once it goes to her, she works closely with Fonografiks on a lot of books, and she works closely with Clayton Coles on a lot of books. So I see the two of them needing to kind of keep in contact to make sure that a late book gets in. So I mean, that made me very, very aware. So by the time I was starting on Injection, I actually asked Jordie, I'm like, what are the things, if you could warn me of certain things right now, what would they be? And she's like, X, Y, and Z. So I made sure that I was on top of those so we didn't have problems later on.
Right.
I mean, you're always going to have problems. Like I said, the last issue got pretty tight. But certainly seeing, I think Jordie's got an sixth sense now for seeing when a book's going to go off the rails in 3 months. So that was a massive help.
Are you at least is it at least partially because you're worried about Jordie yelling at you?
Yeah. Of course it is. Well, also because if other people are making her life hell, and I'm like, what an asshole. I can't really be that asshole, Yeah. I can never complain about somebody else if I'm, if I end up causing the same problems. But I mean, it was a huge. I mean, just in general, it was a huge shock to see how ridiculously unprofessional a lot of artists are. Right. That is it. I just assumed that everybody was on time when they said they were supposed to be.
Right.
So I got a really big shock when it just never seemed to happen to Jordie. There was a big period there where everything was just never on time. But she doesn't work with those people anymore. So
yeah, well, I had talked to Cliff Chang on my podcast a while ago, and one of the things that we talked about was he used to be an editor, and about how that kind of experience made him really much more organized, more conscientious about how the process works. And it kind of seems like you have your own variation of that, having, seen Jordie's side of things and how the efficiencies work on that end.
Well, to be fair, I mean, also when that stuff was happening to Jordie, she'd be on the phone with editors. And,
right.
I mean, I'm not bad mouthing editors here. Like they have the same problem. You know, a lot of those editors are like, I'm trying to get the artist to get the stuff in. They're not talking to me. I can't reach them. Like it's, you know, it's a problem for them too. So, you know, and I know a lot of editors, and I'd ask them these type of questions, and it would be unbelievable. I mean, it would be unbelievable, except I've seen that it happens. So as much as I haven't edited a book in that fashion, I'm very aware of those types of problems. So, and I mean, look, like things happen, people die or people get sick, or you know, those things. Absolutely, there's nothing you can really do about them. But there's a lot of cases where a little bit of foresight and a little bit of planning ahead of time could just saves everybody a massive headache.
Yeah, my wife tells me that all the time. All the time. It never works. Anyway, so I want to go back to the covers, because you did 51 in 2015, which is a lot. But I mean, besides like additional income, why is it that you want to stay active with creating covers for? I mean, how many publishers did you do covers for last year? Is it 3?
I did Dynamite. I did Black Cross ones for Dynamite. I did one Valiant one that was retailer exclusive. I did a few retailer exclusives for Image when they were still doing them. I did Marvel ones, and I didn't do any DC ones. Yeah, I think I've only ever done I did one DC miniseries.
Rogues Rebellion, right? Or Rogue something.
Right. Yeah, it was Rogues Rebellion, but that editor's at Marvel now. So whenever I get cover work off that editor, it's at Marvel, because he's I don't see anymore. But so I think that was it. Yeah, I think that was it. Well, when I was working on Injection but hadn't come out yet, I was very aware of the gap between Moon Knight and Injection, and I wanted to keep my name out there, basically. Sure. So there was a certain careerist reason for doing it. 2, I just enjoy it. I enjoy the illustration challenge. Excuse me. Plus, it's money.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know how they all built up so much. It's really weird. When I was started at Marvel, I was really trying to get on covers, and it just wasn't happening. But a lot of the editors that were there are gone now, and they've been replaced by editors who started after me, and they've seen me do covers. So now I am seen as a cover guy by a lot of people because I was doing it when they got there, which is it's a nice change, you know. I mean, I would say it's partly it's good to have something in the mainstream. Because it reminds people you're alive. Because, like, when I did New York Comic Con, and there was a few people who came up and they were like, "Oh, like I really loved your Moon Knight." I'm like, "Oh, thanks. You know, got this book now, the same creative team, called Injection." They're like, "Oh, great, I'll pick it up," and they did. And then other people come up with the same thing, but their response would be, "When are you coming back to Marvel?" You know. So some people are, like you're like, son of a. But look, sure, what can you do?
Yeah.
So I'm aware that some people are only really going to look at Marvel stuff, or DC stuff for that matter. You know, I'm sure if I did more DC stuff, because you forget it. Because I just like comics. I'll read anything if it's good. You know, but I do. You know, there are still people who only read Marvel, and there are still people who only read DC. So I imagine it would probably make more sense for me to do a DC book than a Marvel book at this stage, because Marvel readers would already know me.
Yeah, you're cross-pollinating.
Yeah, you know, but the covers themselves, I think it just reminds people in the mainstream that I'm alive. So and also I've drawn more Marvel characters since I did more covers than I ever got to do on regular books, because, you know, like I think Thunderbolts got to draw Spider-Man once. The first Thunderbolts issues I did were a Daredevil crossover, and I was like, yes, I get to draw Daredevil, but like he wasn't in it. So, like I only ever got to draw him once, and that was on a Groot cover. So you know,
really random.
Yeah, it is, and I got to draw Silver Surfer once on the Groot cover. You know, so little things like that. I actually get to have a little bit more fun, because you know, you get to show off a little with the covers. Plus, also in a weird way, it's nice. I mean, not that I have huge problems. I mean, I'll send stuff to editors, and maybe there's some notes I have to deal with where I do not have that problem on Injection covers. I just do whatever the hell I want. But there's nothing wrong with reminding yourself of how great it is to do whatever you want on your own book. Then maybe having to deal with an editor who doesn't like the layout that I wanted to do. Although, to be honest, that hasn't really happened. But I mean, not of late. But, you know, working within someone else's remit is a good way to remind yourself of to take advantage of the opportunity to not do that at the same time, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like,
Plus, it's just kind of fun to do. Like, what's the last cover? I'm doing Deadpool covers now. You know, it's just fun to do a cool Deadpool shot.
well,
You know?
especially considering the fact that like I think a lot of people know you for your work on the Deadpool arc you did, and so
Yeah.
it's in a way a good advertisement for your work and like for yourself.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't go hunting for it, but when Jordan White asked if I wanted to do some Deadpool covers, I mean, I know a movie's coming out.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, like, you know, and that weirdly, that one arc of Deadpool that I did has been really, really, really well received.
yeah.
I still get compliments on it.
Yeah, it was a really good one. And also, I mean, like, you know, I don't, it's always really hard to quantify things like, I don't know, like the impact of, let's say, a podcast. But like, you know, didn't Pace do a list of like the top 100 comic artists of all time or cover artists of all time? And I think you were on the list.
I don't know if it was all time. I think
I think it was all time. Maybe it's just current. I don't know. But either way, I mean, like that type of thing.
yeah,
That's good press for you.
No, it is, and like, it's I mean, I genuinely was really moved by that because like they had loads of amazing artists on there, and like just to be next to some of like these people who, like, I grew up adoring.
Right.
It's easy to kind of not notice it because you're just so busy working on what's in front of you right now. To take a step back and go, wow, I'm like, it's one thing to get to do what you like for a living. That's an amazing thing. I'm very, very fortunate. It's amazing to get to work on something that, like, you know, with one of the most like amazing colorists and amazing writers in the industry. You know, that's amazing. But then to also be seen as in the same league as the people who I respect. Like, I'm very, very lucky guy. You know, like you could just get one of those things and you'd be very lucky. I've got like, I'm spoiled. I'm clearly spoiled.
Well, you know, I like, God, I'm trying to remember what you said earlier, but I'm sure it is nice. Like, I always think about the year-end lists and stuff like that, and a lot of people are kind of like, some people get pretty sassy about those on Twitter and stuff. But I have to imagine, like, for you guys to like see somebody that like really applauding your work and stuff, it's probably pretty nice to have that, just because then you know that people are really paying attention to what you do and thinking about it and ingesting it and enjoying it.
Yeah, it probably matters a little too much to me. You know, like I probably shouldn't really put that much importance on it. But like if like the top 100 books of the year were on CBR on the list, and we're Injection was there, number 41. I'll be honest, man, I was worried it wasn't going to be on there at all because there's so many good books.
Yeah,
you know, like and it's not on all the lists that Moon Knight was last year. Mm-hmm. Moon Knight did got like the reception to Moon Knight last year was amazing, and it got like loads of books for like the top 10. You know, like, you know, as there were creative teams, it was me and Jordie, and best like you know, single issues, this, that, and the other, it's not as hot a book as Moon Knight is at all, which, you know, part of me is like, oh. But like, you know, it doesn't like, as long as the book is good, because that's what's the most important thing. When it's finished, that's what's going to matter. That it was on a list one year or isn't that big deal. But I mean, you know, I will admit I would have been bummed out if it wasn't on that list at all. I was hoping just to be on there was great,
right?
You know, and it really shouldn't matter that much to me. Like, but
yeah, dude, I totally understand. I mean, like, I think it's always nice seeing people like say nice things about your work, and like, I don't know. I do think that part of the difference between Marvel or Moon Knight and an Injection is just what you said about New York Comic Con. Like, some people, like even people who work on websites, really predominantly read Marvel still, and like they don't go super deep in like the like. There's just so many comics today that it's hard to keep track of everything, and sometimes people just choose other ones, and it's very odd. But anyways, well, I want to get to something you talked about on Twitter really quick. You had talked about your career goals for 2016. And you want to do volume 2 and 3 of Injection. You want to write a comic. You want to draw a superhero one shot, or draw a one shot, possibly superhero, and publish a black and white edition of your work. So I want to talk about writing. Well, I mean, you're already really busy. What makes you want to add that to your already busy schedule?
Well, kind of what we were talking about earlier on about Injection being my only thing.
Yeah.
that I listen to a lot of interviews, and a lot of writers talk about how if they're kind of stuck on one thing, it's always good to have something else to
move on to.
Move on to. Now, from an illustration point of view, I get to do that with covers, which is great. Sometimes probably get too distracted with them, but I just kind of I hit a point where one from a completely careerist point of view. So this is going to sound a bit disingenuous, maybe, but you writers are bigger names, and as no matter how good an artist you are, you really don't have autonomy over your work because so much of it would depend on the writer that you're working with. So, whatever book I do after I do Injection, I mean, it's dependent on the writer, and that's fine. But where am I going to be in 4 years? Will the hottest writers want to work with me? I don't know. I just don't know. Will people just not be interested in my work by then? You just don't know. So, I've a lot of respect for Jason Latour. Excuse me. Who? Excuse me. Sorry. In a lot of I was telling him, I felt that he's had two careers. He's had a very, very unsuccessful career, which is the career he had, say maybe ending maybe like 5 years ago, and an extremely successful career. And I think by broadening out his skill set, and because look, I feel what I could do is I could do way more pages in a year, but I found that I'm happier doing less pages.
Right.
Higher quality, less pages. I used to pride myself on being a workhorse, but I think what's better now is to, as I've said elsewhere, is just kind of like focus the laser beam into something a lot better, rather than just trying to like draw everything. I just can't do it anymore. So I want to do the best drawing I possibly can, which means I've got to be a little bit slower, which means a certain amount of issues a year. So from a very pragmatic point of view, there's only so much work I can do in a year. So if somebody throws me like a Spider-Man story or something else I'd love to do, there's only so much time in the day, and only so much time in the year. There's other things I'd like to do. I effectively have always had to choose between mainstream and independent, and I'm doing independent now, whereas I was doing mainstream. And I, kind of sick of seeing other people being able to do that. And there's stories I'd like to do, but, there's even I've talked to Jordie about me and Jordie doing some stuff together, and I feel bad saying to her some stage, I just don't have the time, which sucks, because there's loads of things I'd like to do. So at this stage, instead of waiting for me to have the time to draw it, I think I'm just gonna write stuff that I'd like to do, and even if somebody else draws it, that's fine. Also, I have a bit of a name behind myself now. If I tried doing this 5 years ago, it wouldn't have mattered. But I think I've built up enough good. I think if you like my art, you probably. If you like my stuff, you'd probably just buy it, no matter who's writing it. Hopefully, and I don't know. If you follow me on Twitter, you get some personality. So I don't know. I'm just gonna give it a go, man. See what happens.
I know. I think it's a great idea for all the reasons you said, and I do think that.
Plus, I do feel I'm in a unique position where I can actually probably get some stuff off the ground that maybe another writer from Ireland maybe can't.
Right.
And I think what people from America, I wouldn't know this, but there's been a big surgence of comics coming from Ireland, Irish creators. And I think that's great, but I think that there needs to be a writer that maybe kind of gets stuff out there, and it hasn't quite happened yet. And instead of me waiting for that to happen with somebody, maybe I could bust that open a little bit for somebody else.
Yeah. Well, and it also, like you said, you have, if you're working on your art a little bit slower, it probably opens up a little bit more time for you to start tackling other things. And maybe you do, I don't know, less covers this year and you start writing something. So
I've decided to do that. I'm going to do less covers. I think I'll do Marvel covers, and just Marvel covers, no more retailer variants or anything like that. And just try basically draw Injection as well as I possibly can. And otherwise just spend time writing. So it doesn't need to come out now. I can just work on it until I feel like it's good,
Yeah.
Also, sorry, slightly as well, I see a lot of artists talking about writing their own stuff in the next year. I think that's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well,
I saw Lee Baremo do it last year. Scotty Young did it last year. Who else? I think there's 2 or 3 other people who did it last year. So yeah, I think the trend is going to go more that way.
Well, I think you brought up Jason Latour. I think he really opened it up quite a bit, especially because he's. I wrote about this, but I think it's really cool that he has both drawn many issues of Southern Bastards, but he also wrote one issue.
I thought that was brilliant. I loved because I really love Chris Brunner's work, and I loved it because it was their book. Jason Aaron didn't need to write that one, and Jason Latour could have. I haven't actually read it yet, but I bet you it's just as good.
Oh, it is fantastic. It's one of the best issues. But I mean, really, when you're talking about that book, it's like a 13-way tie or whatever issue it is. But anyways, like I think that he's such. Maybe he, like, not saying that he's like the only person who's ever done that, but he's definitely proven that you can. You can do both of those things. You can write and you can draw. And like, I like seeing the interchangeability of the Jasons on there. Not saying that Jason Aaron's going to draw the book anytime soon.
Hey, I'd love to see it. I would absolutely love to see it.
You should see if Warren will draw an issue of Injection. I don't think he'd like that very much.
I don't think it's the time.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I don't know if I can do it, but I mean, I think I can't remember who I was talking to about it one time before, but it was another artist was telling me, it's like, you've, as an artist, you've drawn so many stories and read so many scripts, like, you're bound to at least do a decent, because again, it's not so much, for me, it's storytelling. Mm-hmm. And I've been telling stories for so long, so even if I don't write a great story, I think I could take a badly written story and tell it better, with art.
Right. Well,
so I could make a decent comic in how I approach storytelling, And
I think one of the interesting things too is like, you probably know how to write for an artist because you are an artist, and you know how to, like, I don't know, script in a way that would make, I don't know, like, it wouldn't just be like crowd scene or anything like that.
Yeah, well, I've written a couple of short stories. I wrote some short stories for myself, but I did one for another artist last year. It was the year before, and I mean, as I was writing it, I could I could have drawn it, mm-hmm. Like I tell the flow and how it was going, and the guy did a great job of it. Like, but I think I could definitely write for an artist, But I think. If I wanted to do comics for the rest of my life, like, I'd really, really like to. I think, as great as it is working with Warren and whatnot, and I'm building this book that I've always wanted to build, maybe the following year I can just write and draw my own graphic novel or something, or I won't need to worry about not getting a good, well-known writer. I can trying to think ahead 10 years, 15 years from now,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. So to close things out, I wanted to end with 5 quick questions that are completely unrelated to anything, because as we found on Twitter, some people might not know Declan Shalvey, and maybe this will be a good way to get them to know you a little bit better. So are you cool with that?
Sure. They're probably not going to be good answers, but
we'll find out. Okay. And I did this with you at New York Comic Con, and your answers were fantastic. So we'll see about that. I
can't remember them. I thought they were awful.
Oh, really? No, I thought they were great. I mean, okay. I was entertained by them, but
good. That's all that matters.
So I know you're a big movie guy. Everyone has their favorite movie, but for you, what's the movie where the consensus is, like, what's your guilty pleasure movie?
I don't really have guilty pleasure. I think when I was younger, I'd just be like, like, oh, okay, it's so dumb, it's so bad, it's good.
Yeah, totally.
I just either like it or not. I'm trying to think. So maybe like something that I liked that everybody else seems to not like.
Yeah.
I don't think that really happened, to be honest, last year. Yeah, because I watched Star Wars. And I enjoyed it, and all it's been online since is like, it's the best movie in the world. This was shit. Like, oh, fuck off. Like, it was just a fun movie. I enjoyed the movie. I wasn't that bothered about forming an opinion, extreme opinion, or telling people why they're wrong about this or that and the other. So I don't really care.
Right.
If people aren't into it, but I can't think of something that I liked that other people were complaining. Do you have an example? Something like that.
Do I?
Like Yeah, you like Arrow, don't you? That's shite.
Well, no, I mean,
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen it.
I'm really sour on Arrow now, but a great example is the movie Cabin Boy, which most people hate, and I think that movie is amazing. And it's total garbage. It's Chris Elliott, and it's about this like fancy lad from a like a prep academy who goes off on like a pirate ship effectively to get home, and it's like dumb beyond words. And I think it actually eventually became a cult classic. But when I was a kid, I watched it and I was like, this is my shit. I love this. And
but everybody else is like, this is terrible.
Oh yeah, I remember like I watched it with my family, and everyone else in my family was like, that was the worst movie I've ever seen. And I was like, I'm going to buy that as soon as I can physically buy that.
During the Halloween, I introduced Jordie to Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2.
Oh yeah, those are definitely guilty pleasures.
Well, not to me. To me, they're just brilliant. Like
I know they're awesome.
Jordie really liked the first one, but she thought the second one wasn't as good.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, what are you talking about? The second one's way better. Like
the second one's the one that has the Rambo scene, right?
Yeah. Which now, because now she's probably, I actually say she is right, but in my mind, like it's way better. And she pointed out why she thought the first one was better. Was better, and I thought she was dead right. But I in my mind, like there's just so many great gags in it, you know. But I'm blind. Like I cannot be. I cannot step back and be objective about that film. It's like, oh, it's brilliant watching it again. But I think that's my only example. It's an old film, but it's something I saw this year again.
Oh no, it's a great example. Okay, so next one. You said you wanted to work on a one shot this year, possibly a superhero one. If you had your pick of the litter, who would you choose?
I would ideally like to do a Batman one. I got a very nice email from somebody asking what I wanted to do at Marvel, and I said I'd like to do a Daredevil or Wolverine, but he's dead,
right?
Or Spider-Man, because I haven't really done a Spider-Man story, or like Captain America, Winter Soldier. Mm-hmm. Like I think I afterwards I thought Punisher. I should have thought of Punisher too, but those are the characters that I realized how obvious it was. You know, like I could have said something like Gambit, and everyone would like, "What, Gambit?" Though, I mean, those are. If I could just do like a dark 30-page or 20-page one shot of some, that'd be some. They're very obvious picks, but there'll be. I just gave you like 7 answers.
No, those are all good. Well, next time just say Adam X the Extreme, and that'll blow their minds.
Yeah. I think I might have had one of those. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, so next question. This is the most important question because this is very important to me. If you had to rank them, what would your personal meal power rankings be between breakfast, lunch, and dinner? So what would be your favorite, second favorite, third favorite?
Ooh. Oh, man, that's controversial.
It is controversial, but there's only one answer for number one. And if you don't, you're wrong. You're just wrong.
I would say breakfast is the least important.
What? Okay, this interview is over.
Well, just because sometimes I wake up late and lunch ends up being my breakfast.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Also, breakfast isn't quite the same. In America, breakfast is like pancakes and sausages and all that. Whereas, I mean, there's an Irish breakfast is like sausages and rashers and whatnot, but that's more of a weekend thing. You know, generally breakfast is just cereal.
Yeah, we're over the top with our breakfasts.
Yeah, I mean, I love American breakfast. I'm all over that shit. Like, but I would say for me in general, it's probably dinner.
Oh, dinner's my number 2. It is versatile. I don't think lunch is very versatile, but yeah.
Yeah, I need to hit lunch and dinner every day. I skip breakfast sometimes.
Well,
but breakfast for me would generally just be like a bowl of cereal or something, so it's not missing that much, you know.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so next question. You do a lot of commissions. What do you think your most common commission request is?
That's a good question. I don't do that many.
Really?
Actually.
I thought you did a lot.
Not really. I do a chunk for New York Comic Con. I did like 10 last year, 10 the year before, 10 this year, and most. Actually, nice. It's nice. I actually get a good few different ones, but I would say Moon Knight is the most now.
I kind of figured it would be.
And the year before it was Winter Soldier. When I was doing the Winter Soldier covers, I was getting a lot of Winter Soldier requests.
That's fun. I really like the Winter Soldier design.
Yeah, me too. I loved drawing them. Like if someone says Winter Soldier, yeah, definitely. But I would say Moon Knight is now. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. All right.
Which is actually funny because I put less work into the Moon Knight ones because I don't render. I do like grey wash, but I never did grey wash on Moon Knight
Because he's all white.
Because he's all white.
Yeah.
So if you ask for a Moon Knight commission, you actually technically get less work. I'll put grey wash into the background to make him pop, but if you don't ask for Moon Knight, you end up getting like if you do Winter Soldier one, I'll do all the reflections on his metal arm and everything, you know. But,
yeah. It's funny when I've asked for like commissions for people, I realize after I asked them that I've probably asked them for like the most simple thing that I possibly could ask them for. And not that that's a problem because I get what I want, but at the same time, it's like I probably could think all grandiose and like ones that they would involve like colors and like wash and things like that. And I don't know. I guess I don't really think about that. I just think about what I like.
Yeah, I'm the same. Well, I get more stumped when people say like draw whatever you want. I'm like, I don't know.
Oh God, I know that's the worst question to ask an artist.
Yeah,
like
so
I am busy.
You actually have to think, you know, and that's never goes well. But yeah, no, I've pared down the commissions a lot these days, just because I just try to focus more on the pages now.
Mm-hmm. All right, last question. Let's say we live in an alternate universe where you have free time. What are your what are your favorite things to do with said free time?
Watch compelling emotional drama series.
Oh yeah.
So I got to watch Peaky Blinders this year, which is fantastic. I'm halfway through season 2 of Fargo. Oh,
it's so good.
Brilliant. I've watched every episode of Hannibal except for the last one. Mm-hmm. We've gone on holiday. Jordie and I've gone on holidays and cruises, and she's if I had my perfect holiday would just be sitting at home watching all of the film. I need to make a list of the films that I've missed in the last 5 years and just watch all of those and read. And I've all these been buying books for the last 5 years I haven't had a chance to read. So if I had free time, I would read a crap load of books and watch a crap load of film and TV.
Yeah. Well, I mean, TV's tough. I mean, there are just random stations that come up with great shows now. Like I have Amazon Prime, and there's this show called The Man in the High Castle.
Yeah, I just heard about it. It sounds amazing.
It does. I love the alternate Nazi story. Like what if the Nazis won? I think that story sounds amazing. And now I really want to watch it, but I'm like, when am I going to watch another 10-hour show?
Yeah, 10 hours. When are you going to get 10 hours?
Yeah,
that was when Jessica Jones came out. Me and Jordie were I'm when Daredevil came out, Jordie was really busy, and we had to kind of figure out how we were going to watch it all. Mm-hmm. And when Jessica Jones came out, I was really busy, so we had to figure out a way in which we could watch 2 and break it down. It's tough, man. Because Clayton Coles told me about the show called Manhattan, and I watched the first episode. It was really good.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about that too. And it sounded like WGN or something.
I have no idea what the who's making it, but it's golden. There's just too much. There is not enough to keep on top of it, but it's all good.
Yeah, I think
in a way it's kind of like comics, and there's so much good stuff right now. You can't actually keep track of it all. I don't know how you keep track of what you keep track of, and I read a lot of comics.
Oh, I don't. I have very much streamlined my reading. That's the problem though. Is when I was a kid, I read a bunch of stuff that probably wouldn't be considered to be critical darlings or things that you're supposed to read or anything like that. But I freaking loved I don't know. I mean, this is probably a bad example because I think people liked it, but I loved Excalibur when I was a kid. And, I was a huge Pete Wisdom fan, and I thought he was the best character. And but I probably wouldn't read that now because I'm too busy reading all of the other stuff you're supposed to read. And there's it's the same thing with TV critics. There's this one TV critic I really like. His name's Alan Sepinwall. And he says he just doesn't have enough time to watch all the shows he's supposed to. And it's his job to watch TV.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, yeah.
It's ridiculous. But anyways, well, that was my 5 random questions. Thank you so much for coming on, Declan. I hope that everything goes well with the next arc, and keep up the great work.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel from Sketch.com. You can find this week's guest, Declan Shalvey, on Twitter at Declan Shalvey, on Tumblr at dshalv.tumblr.com, and his work in Injection at Image Comics with Warren Ellis, Jordie Bellaire and Fonografiks. You can find more sketch content at sketch.com. That's SKTCHD.com. Follow us on Twitter at @sketchcomic and like us on Facebook at /sketched. If you're an iTunes subscriber, give the show a rating or review on there. We'd greatly appreciate it. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.